Alright, weekly recap for what? Week 3 of October, I assume? Yeah, I'm not sure right now, but whatever, for the past week. This was our news thingy. We had basically just CPI on Friday, and some other news at 9:45 as well, which was yesterday. Now looking at dollar, just basically looking at the weekly chart, I mean, if you're seeing what I'm seeing, so we have this week, then we have an inside week of this week, and then we have an inside week of that week. So we're like stacking inside weeks right now. Yeah. So low probability, basically, is what I'm saying. Anyway, let's look at what we did last week. We had this bearish daily gap here that we were watching coming into the week. We never actually inversed it on dollar. However, we did inverse, actually, oh no, let me see. Yeah, we never actually inversed it on dollar, but we did inverse the equivalent on the majors. So I've kind of discarded this gap for now. We also formed a bullish gap here that we're respecting so far. If we drop down to the hourly chart, we can see that that we dropped down into that daily gap, bullish daily gap here on Friday with the CPI news, and then afterwards we had a nice reaction out and then kind of just consolidated to end the week and the day and the week, I guess would be the right way to say that. Anyway, yeah, so basically yeah, I mean, I guess kind of not much not much going on here. Anyway, let's move on to the majors, where the exact same thing essentially is going on, right? We can see Euro USD. We got that same weekly structure with the inside week stack. And here we can see that inverse of the bearish gap and then the pull up into the bullish gap. No setup or anything from there yet, right? But that could still potentially be something. But for that to be something, we'd have to get some more price action actually trading above the entire daily gap, since this is already the daily gap's high. But in order to get a valid order block, we would probably need to see a purge of this high. So we'd have to see that happen way above where the daily gap even is, which already makes it less high probability than like seeing it happen, you know, below consequent encroachment or whatever. So yeah, I mean, not super sensitive so far to that gap, but that is something I guess to still watch for. That was what Euro was doing, and then Pound was slightly more bearish. We had actually two daily gaps form, and the lower one on Friday we wicked into it, and then we sold off from there. Right, this is the lower daily gap, this is the higher daily gap marked out. Let me just get rid of these up here. And yeah, they're on CPI, we wick into that lower gap, and then afterwards we quickly sell off and make new lows, and then kind of just retrace back into the range to end the week. I mean, overall, like, this week was like not much going on majors, I'd say. Like, nothing much actionable for sure. But yeah, Pound also does almost have the same thing. Pound actually does not have stacked inside weeks because the week before we actually purged previous week low here. So yeah, but I mean, overall, like, high time frame, I guess my draw is still here on Pound, and then like higher on dollar and lower on Euro as well, right? These equal lows. But I do have to say, like, this delivery since like August, like all this is just like cheeks, man. Like, we've went in like what, 10 weeks, so 2.5 months, we've managed to drop 2%. Like, there's just not much going on, right? Whereas like if we look at a clean month of price action, maybe this one, like April 2025, we can see that we went 3.5% higher in a month. So like this is really just like not much, or in a week, I mean, this is really like not much going on. But yeah, I mean, that's just how it is. Anyway, let's move on to indices. Now indices, honestly, I guess the expectation was higher prices. Now we did still have a bearish daily gap when the week started, right here. But NQ and both NQ and ES, I mean, quickly pushed up through that on Monday, inversing it, and then we formed a new daily bullish gap, retraced into that, and then pushed to all-time highs. So very clean week, bar the fact that NQ inversed its gap. And I guess you could argue that if you draw the volume imbalance out with it, it didn't here, but then it gapped lower and opened below the gap here, so it still isn't like buttery smooth, but you know, I guess that's negligible. And also we had a nice hourly setup here in ES. I'll just leave that on the chart real quick so anyone can look at kind of what we had going on there. Yeah, since I made a trade recap actually on that already. And then yeah, I mean, that was indices. So I mean, going into the week, right, I had mentioned that I was kind of going to be watching this daily bearish gap, but I was expecting that it would be disrespected just based on how, you know, choppy, like, essentially my thought process was, if we were going to respect this, I think we would have went instantly, like here on Tuesday, like there would have been some urgency to go lower. There was no urgency to go lower, right? We consolidated inside that daily gap for like 4 days. So at that point I was like, okay, most likely we're just gonna inverse it and then see a run to all-time highs. And yeah, I mean, that's what we got. So basically what we were expecting on indices, and we even got a nice trade setup out of it. So that's peak. I'm looking at gold. Going into the week, we were in this daily gap right here, right? And we were looking for a potential bullish expansion continuation higher, expecting Monday to probably do so. So if we quickly jump to the hourly chart, we can see here, this is where we kind of were, right, in this range here. There's no setup in this, but on Monday we quickly run higher, we run up here, we take out previous week high, and we had like a major sell-off, and we reach down into this lower daily gap down here, which is like a deep premium. If we go by this dealing range from here to here, and we also have an order block here, and we trade into that, and we also formed a bearish daily gap doing so, but I mean, that's almost a little for later. Anyway, looking at the weekly chart real quick, we can see we did not actually reach into this weekly imbalance, so that is something to keep note of as well, right? Also silver, there's no weekly imbalance that we reached, but we do have weekly consecutive candle SMT, right here. GC did not take previous week low, and silver did take previous week low. Now you could argue the same thing for previous week high, which really is the case. Also silver beforehand has purged this swing high from all the way over here, so we're kind of seeing some stalling after doing that, which makes sense if we're gonna see a stall for it to be at a high time frame liquidity pool. Anyway, on that drop down low, we had this order block here form, and since we had that weekly consecutive candle SMT in price, this was a valid entry, so I longed this candle here, swing model, right? And yeah, I mean, we're still in the trade. Came really close to getting stopped out here, and then kind of just consolidated around my entry, and yeah, that was that. I guess the interesting thing to note also is we did have SMT in terms of silver trading up into the bearish daily gap, while gold failed to do so. And in theory, this would have been a setup, or could have been a setup, right? This could be a setup essentially. Or I mean, I think it would have already gone. Wait, let me move this to the right candle. like this was a setup, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Right here, right? But, and I mean, I can't really show this other more than showing it, but this setup here would have been the reason to get out of a gold long, right? Because the only reason to get out of trades early for me is if there's an opposing model, then I can make that decision, or not. In this case, I didn't. Just because I feel like, while I could see us being bearish for a bit here, overall we're just so bullish that I just don't want to kind of bet against that. Like I told myself I would keep longing gold every setup until it fails, right? Like mindlessly longing it essentially whenever there is a valid setup to do so. So yeah, and then I guess kind of the consolidation price for this is, even though it looks like this would have played out here on the actual CFD market that I trade for these swing models, it never retraced to the order block. Like there's a bit of a discrepancy here because this is that 1800 like open candle, and those kind of always tend to be a bit different for CFDs, like just like close to whenever a new day opens, it gets a bit wonky compared to the futures. So yeah, that never would have filled, is essentially what I'm saying. Also, it's like not the cleanest of SMRs, right? It's not like it's really like energetic breaker. It's kind of like choppy as fuck. It's kind of more like consolidation that happens to have an order block within it. So, you know, yeah. Also, the order block purges its own swing high, right? Like it doesn't purge an existing swing high. It makes a swing high on the first order block candle and then purges it on the third. So like this really isn't something I would want to be taking, but I just wanted to mention that was there as well. And I mean, essentially on silver and gold, we had a bullish Monday and then a very bearish Tuesday, and then we've been consolidating for 3 days. Like that's, I guess, the premise of what we're doing. So yeah, that's the recap.